Hey guys, it's Al again, looking all disheveled, unshaven. I got this tuft of hair that's sticking out from my head and won't stay against my head for some reason. What I plan to do for today is I had a video all ready to go about a woman in West Virginia who was pulled out of a local legislative meeting. Sorry, I can't talk right now. She was pulled out of a local legislative meeting for naming off the donors and the amounts of money given to specific people on that legislature who would be voting on a bill that would directly help said donors. And that's what I was going to do today. And then something pretty big happened. There was another school shooting here in America. So today we're going to talk about school shootings and mass shootings in general here in America, and what I think the problem is, and what I think we could do as a country to help greatly lower the occasions of these things happening. Okay, so to date, depending on how you define them, there have been between 17 and 19 school shootings in America, and keep in mind it is halfway through February at the point where I'm recording this, and yeah, so we're only not even 2 months in, and there's already been 17, 19 of them. Real quick, I want to read off the school shootings to you. We've got Seattle, Washington; Los Angeles, California; San Bernardino, California; Sierra Vista, Arizona; Italy, Texas; Marshall, Texas; Denton, Texas; Gentilly, Louisiana; Mobile, Alabama; Benton, Kentucky; St. John's, I almost said Mississippi. I mean St. John's, Michigan. If I can talk and read, that would help. Maplewood, Minnesota, which, by the way, is right down the street from where I live. I don't live too far away from Maplewood. Dearborn, Michigan; Bronx, New York; Oxon Hill, Maryland; Philadelphia, Pennsylvania; Winston-Salem, North Carolina; and the latest one in Parkland, Florida. All right, so there have been a lot of these things, and we're not even 2 months into the new year. It's insane. Now, let's be fair. The people who compiled the list I just read to you and the picture you just saw on screen are counting anytime a gun went off or there was an incident involving a gun on or near school ground. Alright, so these things, the one in Maplewood, Minnesota, for instance, right by where I live, somehow or another, I believe it was a third grader, managed to set off a gun that was holstered in a cop's holster during some kind of classroom activity. I don't know how that happened, but that cop needs to be retrained, because there's no way a third grader should get that close to your gun. That is a deadly weapon. That should not happen. Alright, there's no way that should ever happen. That cop, I don't know what happened to that cop, I'll be honest with you, because until I started researching for this, even living here locally, I didn't hear about it. And that's because gun things happen here in the U.S. so often that unless 10, 15 people are dead, you don't hear about it. They hardly report on it. All right. There was one or two of them which were suicides that happened on a school ground. There were instances of shots being fired where nobody was killed in there. But still, these are guns that are on school grounds. And that's not good. There should not be any guns on school grounds. All right, I work in schools. I'm a teacher. And I work with everything from kindergarten through 12th grade. All right, so I do the whole gamut while people are growing up. There should never be a gun on a campus. Never. All right? Schools should be next to a kid's home should be the place they feel the safest. All right, I don't care if you go to a public school, a private school, a parochial school, I don't care. You should feel safe at that school. There should be no fear that anything's going to happen. All right, I was in high school when Columbine happened, which was the first that I remember big publicized school shooting. I remember how terrified we all were because none of us had ever seen anything like that before. All right, obviously I didn't go to school in Columbine. I went to school here in Minnesota. But everybody in the school was floored. We didn't know how to deal with it because we'd always felt safe at school. All right, not all of us liked our teachers. Not all of us liked everybody we went to school with. You know, there were fights like any other school. But generally, we felt safe. We didn't feel like we were going to go to school and go home in a body bag. And Columbine was the first realization that something could happen. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse since then, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay, with that said, let's talk about, and I'm not going to name them because I do not want to give these guys even the minimal amount of fame that somebody on a channel like mine would give them, which doesn't have a huge following and is mainly a vlog for me to get this stuff out of my system. So I'm not going to name this guy, but let's talk about the situations of this a bit. This was a guy, he was 19 years old, I believe, and it was said by people who went to this school with him. He at one point went to this school, and they said if there's going to be a school shooting around here, this guy's going to do it. He had gone on, I think it was YouTube, where he used his actual name. He didn't even use a pseudonym or anything. Where he said he wants to be a professional school shooter. All right, this was a troubled kid. They said at the school he could not carry a backpack. He could not carry a backpack into the school because they were worried he would hide something in that backpack. So there were red flags everywhere. But as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong and there's something I missed, because there very well may have been, because when these things happen, there's always a lot of information that comes out. But as I understand it, this guy legally got this gun. As far as I know, he didn't find it in his uncle's. He didn't find the key to his uncle's gun safe and get it from there or anything. Apparently, this gun was his. From everything I've seen, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, point me to a link. Give me a link that disproves me if I'm wrong. Because I will happily make a correction if I'm wrong. But he was still able to legally get this gun. And that is largely an effect of the fact that after the Sandy Hook shooting, everybody remembers Sandy Hook, by the way? It was during the Obama years. Some crazy prick went into a school with an automatic weapon, mowed down a bunch of grade school kids, including kindergartners, and a watered-down background check was the best they could do because the Republicans said we're not voting on any gun reform. It's not going to happen. I mean, come on. I know there's a Second Amendment. I know it guarantees the people the right to bear arms, even though if you plainly read the amendment, it says right in it, a well-regulated militia. And if you want, I can go get my copy of the Constitution. I can read you the amendment verbatim. It's a very poorly written two-3-line amendment, where they were talking about muskets, not weapons, not today's weapons of war. And believe me, when I want to do a series about the Constitution, we're going to go all into the Second Amendment when that comes up. But yes, I know it's there. But you know what that doesn't mean? That doesn't mean we can't limit the types of guns people can get. That doesn't mean that we can't do what something like 93% of the American people want to do and limit high-capacity magazines. Because how many shots do you really need? There's nothing that says we can't limit, hey, no weapons of war. So no more of these automatic AR-15s, AK-47s, whatever they are. I'm sorry, I don't know guns very well. If I wanted a gun lesson, I'll go talk to my uncle. He's really big into them. He'd know the difference. And I don't know. I can tell you there's a rifle, there's a handgun. But that's about it. So, we can say you don't want that. I mean, and somebody says, "Oh, no, you can't regulate that." Okay, well, first of all, the Supreme Court disagrees with you, and even conservative nut jobs like Antonin Scalia disagreed with you. So yes, it is the law of the land that you can regulate that, whether you agree with it or not. And there are some things the Supreme Court has done that I don't agree is constitutional, but that's a whole other discussion. So, but think about it. If you can't regulate it, which is going to be somebody's argument out there, let's take that to the extreme. Should somebody be able to own a bazooka? A tank? A nuke? Is it okay for a private citizen to own those things? I would venture no, because those are weapons of war. They're not for self-defense. They're not for hunting. Their only purpose is to destroy as many people as possible and as much property as possible. That's the only reason for them. So I would venture to say that no, the average United States citizen does not need those. And there we have regulation. Yes, that thing that Republicans seem to hate so much, regulation. There we have that. The only question is, where's the line of what can be regulated and what can't? Right? That's the discussion, if you want to have one, that we should be having. Not that you can't. Sorry about that. I had an alert go off in the middle of my rant there. But what I was saying is that, we can regulate the guns. Now, I know what some people are going to say about me just listening to that part of it. Oh, Libby Libtard doesn't like guns, wants to take all our guns away. No, that's not where I'm going. It's true that guns aren't my thing. I don't care for guns. The only gun in my possession is a very, very old double-barrel shotgun that my grandfather owned that doesn't work. Alright, everything that would make it fire has been taken out of it. It's a family heirloom at this point. That's all it is. So, it's the only gun I own. I do own a bow and arrow. I don't hunt with it. I do target shooting because it relaxes me. I guess. It's a nice little relaxation technique. But, yeah. And my father was a hunter, though. So I don't have any problem with hunters. You want to have a hunting rifle? Fine, go for it, especially if you're the type of person that'll use the meat from the deer or the duck or whatever it is you're hunting, and you'll actually eat it. Go for it. Hunt. It's not my thing. But if you're the type of person that's going to use it, go for it. You don't need an AR-15 to go deer hunting. If you do, you're a really bad hunter. You want a handgun for home defense? I got no problem with that. I'm not a huge fan of concealed carries, but yeah, you want something for home defense, you keep it locked up? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's fine. You keep it out of the reach of children. You make sure they can't get it. There's something with a code on it that only you can get into. Great. Great. You're fine. As far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly well within the Second Amendment. Again, you don't need an AR-15 for that. If you need an AR-15 to protect your home, you are a really bad shot. You ran afoul of some really bad people, and you probably need police protection. Or you're a real scumbag. I mean, that's if you need that kind of gun to protect your home. And if you look at the statistics and what actual gun experts will say, well, they will agree with me. Anything more than that is overkill, and you're more likely to kill a loved one than you are an actual intruder. So, I'm in favor of keeping my loved ones alive, personally. So yeah, I don't have anything directly against guns. It's within the Second Amendment. As long as you are trained with the gun, because yes, I think you should have to go through training to own a gun. I think you should probably have to have a license to own a gun, because you need a license to own a car, and cars aren't made for killing people, but part of the reason that we make you get a license is because they are potentially a weapon. They can be used to kill people, but yet we don't make you do that to buy a gun. We don't make you go through training. Everybody should have to go through some kind of training. You should know how to fire the gun. You should know and have to practice strict gun safety, because we don't want innocent people getting shot. You should, have some place to lock it up. I'm sorry, putting it in your nightstand, especially if there are kids around, not a good idea. You should have some kind of gun safe. And if you can do all that, yeah, absolutely. Have your gun. And have something that makes sense. Again, no weapons of war. The weapons being used for these school shootings are things that are only made. They're not made for home defense. They're not made for hunting. They're made to end as many human lives as possible in the shortest amount of time. And that's why people are using these AR-15s or AR whatever they are. I'm sorry, I think it's AR-15s, but I may be misquoting that. And frankly, it's ridiculous that we can't do anything about it. Again, remember Sandy Hook? 93% of the American people wanted extended federal background checks. A full gamut, do away with the three-day loophole where if they don't get it done in 3 days, you give them the gun anyway. No. Do away with that. Full background checks for every gun sale. No more gun show loophole. 93% of the American people were up for that, including the vast majority of NRA members. But you know who wasn't for it? The NRA. Because the NRA, they don't care about the members. They're not for the members. Never have been. They work for the gun manufacturers. Sell as many guns as possible. And you know what the best seller of a gun is? Fear. If you're afraid that somebody's going to bust into your home, you're more likely to go buy a gun. It's human nature. At our core, we're all scared little animals. We want to protect ourselves, we want to protect our families, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to protect yourself and your family. But they work to scare you. They use fear to drive up sales. That's what they do. That's all they do. And that's why they're not in favor of any gun regulation. Keep in mind, the NRA are the same people who want blind people to be able to have a gun. Because apparently you don't need to be able to see to shoot a gun. And yes, there is actually an ad from the NRA, you can probably look it up on YouTube, where they say, yeah, blind people should have a gun. Because you don't need to see somebody to shoot at them. I'm pretty sure they literally say that in the ad at some point. They want people on the terrorist watch list to be able to get guns. And their argument for that is, well, there might be somebody on there that shouldn't be on there. Mistakes happen. And I say, well, I'm sorry, if you're on the terrorist watch list, I don't want you having a gun, because that means you might be more likely to do a stinking shooting. I almost cussed. So no, if you're on the terrorist watch list, I don't want you having a gun. I think it's stupid to give you a gun. You'd have to be mental. Now, if you want to say that there's no real process for getting on the watch list, okay, reform how people get on the watch list. That's fine by me. I'm all for that. That goes in with the topic of like wireless or warrantless wiretapping for me. I don't think we should do it. You should have to get a warrant. All right, government listens in on every phone call I have. I don't want them listening in on me. I don't have anything to hide, but I want my privacy. I don't want my metadata going to some facility in like Utah or wherever they built that billion-dollar facility. It's none of their business. Anything I search on the web, it's none of their business. Unless they can get a warrant. If they get a warrant, they can spy in on me all they want, but they won't be able to get a warrant on me because I'm not hiding anything. All right, so what I talk about with my aunt, or if at some point I have a girlfriend again, what I talk about with a girlfriend, not the NSA's business. Sorry. All right, I'm getting off on a rant here. But while I want to circle back to background checks for a second, because again, 93% of the American people wanted a background check after the Sandy Hook shooting. Guess what Trump wants to do in his budget? He wants to cut funding, about 16% of the funding, from our current federal background check system. He wants to cut it by about 16%. And this was after there already been, at the time of him proposing this, something like a dozen school shootings in the country. I'm pretty sure that this happened after the Vegas shooting, which that's another thing, by the way. Bump stocks need to be outlawed and gotten rid of, because the only reason they're there is to turn a non-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. So the only reason for them is to subvert the law, because you're not supposed to be able to have a fully automatic weapon in certain states or whatever it is. So the only reason there is to subvert the law and turn semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic weapons. All right, I think the law in certain places is you can have a semi-automatic, you can't have a fully automatic. And again, maybe I'm wrong on that. Correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong. I'm more than willing to and open-minded to learning that I have that fact wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me, please. Give me a link to, to the proof that I'm wrong, and I will be more than willing to post a video saying, "Oh, I was wrong on this fact in this video. Let me revise that." But yeah, bump stocks need to be gotten rid of. They're the reason that the guy in Vegas managed to kill as many people as he did. That and the fact that guns are just way too easy to get a hold of. You see, after Sandy Hook, what happened? Democrats said, we want to ban high-capacity magazines, we want to do a full federal background check, get rid of the 3-day loophole, get rid of the gun show loophole, and make it a lot harder for people that shouldn't have guns to get guns. All right, President Obama did an executive order saying people that are not mentally capable of handling their own finances are also not going to be able to buy a gun. So they tried to do tweaks and little bits of common sense gun reform. And what happened? Well, the Republicans on the background checks and the magazines and the ban on high capacity magazines and weapons that could do this, the Republicans said no. We're not even going to vote on it. And they didn't. Democrats had to do a sit-in to get a vote on a watered-down background check bill. And if I'm not mistaken, it didn't even pass. This was a few years ago. I might be misremembering that, but if I'm not mistaken, it didn't even pass. 93% of the American people want to do that, and it doesn't get done. I'm sorry, that doesn't sound like a democracy to me. That sounds like the NRA ruling the country. When 93% of the American people want to do something and the Republican Party goes against it, guess what? That means the Republicans are against democracy. They're against you. They don't care what your will is. It's whatever their donors want to do, and one of their biggest donors is the NRA. Why do you think every time that one of these things happens, what do Republicans do? Same talking points every time. Can't politicize it. It's not the time to talk about it. We got to have respect for the families. We cannot talk about it now. Okay, so when do you want to talk about it? Because on average, we have one of these school shootings every 60 hours here in America based on the latest, based on the latest data and the averages. About every 60 hours. And again, I believe that's going by the chart I showed you and their count of what a school shooting is. There's a mass shooting in America every day. But the problem is there's so many of them, most of them don't get covered anymore unless 10, 15 people are dead. Then it's newsworthy. Killed 4 or 5? Whatever. Another day in America. All right, this kind of thing needs to end. And I know there's a lot here. Okay, let's get into Obama's ban on people who cannot mentally handle their own finances getting a gun. Okay, so Obama did that. They couldn't do it anymore. Trump came in, got rid of that. So now if you are not mentally capable of handling your money, all right, you do not have the mental facilities to get to own money. Or not to own money, I'm sorry, I misspoke. But to handle your own money, you have to have somebody appointed to handle your money and your finances for you because you are not mentally capable of doing it. You can still own a gun. You can still own a gun. Great. Ridiculous. And Trump undid that fairly early in his presidency. Oh, my gosh. It's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. But I know what the Republicans will say. I know, what do they say? You can't politicize it. You got to have respect for the families. Sorry, I think not doing anything about it is far more disrespectful to the families than talking about it right now when it's fresh in people's minds. Because if you look at the news, it's already starting to taper off. 17 kids killed in a high school. You're already almost starting to hear nothing about it, depending on where you go for your news. It's already tapering off. I know I'm seeing less about it in the online outlets that I watch. I just happened to see a short thing about an update on it on local news the other day. Things get out of the news cycle so quick these days that they're already not talking about this anymore. And give it another couple days, they won't be talking about it at all. So when do you want to talk about it? When? Because there's always one of these things happening. So by your logic, you can never talk about it. Oh, there's the trick. There's the trick. There's always one happening, and our standard is you can't talk about it right after it happens. Hey, you can never talk about it. We can never do anything about it. Oh, come on. And what's the other thing they always say? Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. We send our thoughts and prayers. Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, countless other GOP people put their thoughts and prayers, sent their thoughts and prayers out to the people of Florida, who are affected by this. Well, you know what? Your thoughts and prayers haven't worked. If only you were in Congress and in the position to propose legislation that could potentially keep this from happening again. If only you were, then maybe you could get... Oh, wait, you are. You are in that position. You could do that. You could walk in tomorrow, propose a bill. It could be passed. You could ban AR-15s. Nobody could sell them anymore. But no, you're not going to do that. You could ban high-capacity magazines. Because if people have to reload more often, there's a better chance maybe somebody could tackle them. Oh. You're not going to do that. No. You're going to say that the only way to stop a bad person with a gun is with a good person with a gun. Except that every time, just about every time, 99 out of 100 times, you know what happens? The good person with the gun dies. Because the bad person with the gun comes out, shoots everybody up before the good person with the gun even gets to reach for their gun. That's what tends to happen. They actually ran simulations on this. They had an office building full of people. They didn't know when it would happen, but somebody would come in, simulated mass shooting or terrorist attack. And the only time the good person with the gun got out is when they ran with everybody else and didn't stop to try to fight. It's the only time they lived. Otherwise, they always died. And they almost never, got the person coming in with the AR-15. So, yeah, I'm sorry, that argument doesn't work. Because if it did work, the argument, there's more good people than there are bad people, and if everybody's got a gun, there'll be more good people with a gun, and they'll be able to stop the bad person with the gun. If that worked in practice, America would be the safest country in the world. Safest country in the world. We'd have the fewest shootings. We'd have the fewest gun deaths. There wouldn't be an issue. And I know another thing you're going to say is, well, why make gun laws? Because the bad people, they're just going to go out and they're going to buy it on the black market anyway. They're going to go out, they're going to buy it on the black market. And, then there are less good people with a gun to fight them. Well, will that happen? In some cases, sure. Is that going to stop some people? Yeah. It will stop probably a good number of people because not everybody has especially the people that do this, they don't necessarily have the social skills to go out and make the connections you need to buy a black market gun. They just don't, so it'll stop them. Now, maybe that means they go on a rampage with a knife or something, but you know what? It's a lot easier to stop somebody with a knife than somebody with an AR-15. I'd rather take on somebody with a knife than somebody with an AR-15 any day. Because there's a chance, because the guy with the knife's got to get close to you, and there's a chance I can get a hold of him and keep him from getting me. And it's a little harder to kill somebody with a knife. With an AR-15, you could be a football field or two away and still kill somebody. No real way to defend against that. So sorry, I don't buy into that. And, I mean, if you really want to look at that, we could also look at other countries. Because, if that logic held, then countries like Australia, Great Britain, Norway, Sweden would just be racked with gun violence because, well, all the bad people would go out and get guns because they'd get them on the black market. And there'd be no good people with guns to stop them. So we had, if I remember this stat right, last year we had something like 45,000 I want to say it was 45,000. I could be remembering the number wrong. It was something like 45,000 gun deaths last year. And that includes suicides, homicides, the whole accidents, the whole thing. You know how many they had in Great Britain? I think it was Great Britain. How many? I mean, they have strict gun control laws, so obviously all the bad people are going out, getting guns, the number's going to be higher, right? No. They had two. Two. And if I'm not mistaken, in both cases, it might have been cops shooting somebody. And yeah, it two to our 45,000. Little bit of a number difference there, in there. Just a little bit. What about Australia? I mean, they used to have a really nasty gun problem there. But you know what they did? They took a look at it and they said, oh, this isn't good. There's too many of us dying. We need to do something about this. And they did. They actually passed really strict gun control laws and did a buyback program for all the other guns where you give us the gun, we give you money, no questions asked. They got the guns off the streets. They melted the guns down. So they're not guns anymore. So, yeah, there are things we can do about it. There are things we can do about this gun violence problem. Okay, so this video is getting very long. If you're still hanging in there, thank you very much for sticking with me. I know this is a long rant, but again, I am a teacher, so these school shootings really hit home for me. I work in schools. I work with kids this age, and I don't want to see any of the kids I work with being shot or being the victim of gun violence. I don't want to see guns in any of the schools I work at. I don't, want to see any of my cousins who are school age be shot by guns. I don't want to see anybody be shot by a gun, let alone in a school where kids should feel safe. So if it was up to me, what would I do about this? Well, first thing I would do is you got to get some kind of gun regulation through Congress onto the president's desk and get it signed. And here are the basics of what I would do. High capacity magazines, gone. Outlaw. I would very possibly outlaw semi-automatic guns. Bump stocks, gone. Completely gone. Because the only reason they are around is to make semi-automatics an automatic. So they're gone. And anything like them. Gone, outlawed, not a thing anymore. Can't have them. If you want to have a handgun, a nice 12 shooter for home defense, good, you can have that. You get a license for the gun, you show you have something to keep it in, all right, you pass an extensive federal background check. That's another big thing, extensive background check. Might not catch everybody, but it'll catch enough of them that it'll greatly lower the number of people doing these things. So all those things are going to be in. If you need more than 12 bullets in a clip to defend your home, again, you run afoul of some bad people and you need police protection, not a handgun, or you're a scumbag, or you're a really bad shot, which, if you're going to have a gun, you should be able to show that you can shoot. That's like a car. You need to be able to show you can drive safely. You should be able to handle a gun safely before you can have a gun. So that's my view of it. Some of you might think that's too much red tape. I don't care. This is my opinion. If you want to have a hunting rifle, sure, you can have a hunting rifle. Again, you got to have a place to lock it up. Maybe we even set it up so that there are several gun ranges across the country. I know my uncle belongs to one or two of them. maybe we set it up so that your hunting rifle you have to bring to a gun range. And it belongs to you. You're the only one that can use it. You can go and use it at the range. You can check it out and use it for hunting season. But otherwise it stays there. Because otherwise you don't need a hunting rifle for much. Either that or you have some kind of a gun safe at home that you're going to have to come up with some kind of standard to make sure, kids can't get into it. So maybe it needs a code. Maybe it needs a numeric code. Maybe it's got to work on, I don't know, maybe something's got to work on fingerprints. I don't know. But you got to be able to lock it up so it either stays off site somewhere or you have a nice big gun safe at your home in order to have it. And again, you got to be able to show you can shoot it, handle it correctly. You should probably learn to clean it because a lot of misfires happen because people don't take care of their guns. And again, high capacity magazines for those two, gone. Anything like an AR-15, outlawed. Can't have them. And you do some kind of a federal buyback program. Alright, you set up places, you can get the local police departments to help you with this. You set up, there's a spot somewhere, you bring your gun, and they'll give you you're going to have to make it something so that it's too good of a deal to pass up. So yeah, you have to do some kind of gun buyback. You're going to have to give them some kind of deal that they can't pass up. Because when somebody has a gun, you can't just go in and take it away, I don't think. But something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. So yeah, I do a federal buyback program. And I would give people, I would make it so that it was a deal that they could not pass up. And you bring a gun into this place, we take it, no questions asked. They take the guns, you melt them down, you turn them into playground equipment or something. Make sure they're not guns anymore. That's what I'd do. And that's basically what Australia did. Now, obviously I wouldn't take all of the guns away. Like I said, you want a handgun for home defense? Fine. You want a hunting rifle because you're a hunter? Fine. No problem with that. If you're a member of a gun club and you're a member of a shooting team and you want to have a small caliber rifle for that, sure, fine. I put that in the same category as hunting rifles. Show me you got a place to lock it up, or it stays at the range. Fine, no problem. No problem. I got no issue with that. So that's what I did to take care of this. Obviously, you can't take all the guns away because it is in the Second Amendment that we have the right to bear arms, or at least that militias do, although that meaning has been changed over the years through Supreme Court decisions. But we can regulate what people are allowed to have. Because, like I said earlier, with the extreme example, you don't want people having nukes, nothing like that. So it's just a matter of where you draw that line. And I think I've made fairly clear where I personally would draw that line. And obviously there are always going to be some shootings in America. As long as we're allowed to have guns, there will be shootings, and I don't like that. But if we're going to keep the Second Amendment in the Constitution, there's going to be a little bit of a trade-off there. I just want to lower the amount of shootings as much as humanly possible, especially the number of mass shootings. All right. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for listening to me rant and ramble. This is a topic that really pissed me off, and I'm actually just recording it today because I wanted to take a few days to try to cool it down a little bit before I talked about it. Otherwise, this video would be much longer and more disjointed than it already is, because that's how much these things bug me. So I hope you guys have a good day. I will be posting something gaming related for sure on Wednesday. It'll be the usual Arkham Asylum upload. I forget what part I'm on, but I'll be uploading something from Arkham Asylum. I might do a small opinion piece about Pokemon Go and spoofing, either Tuesday or right after the Arkham upload. And yeah, so I'm going to try to do something more fun for the next uploads, guys. I don't know when the upload's going to go up about the West Virginia lady. That might go up along with this one. It might not go up until next week. We'll see. Anyways, I'm done rambling. I've been recording now for, oh geez, it's been about an hour I've been doing this. So, I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe.